are 3 dates that I want to tell you about. This is the first one, Memorial Day, 1978. The phone rang. I was going down to play golf. I was just about to go out the door. The phone rang, and it was Colleen Howe. She said, Bill, Howard doesn't want you to come back anymore. I'm calling in from the airport. I really wanted to tell you in time, but I got to catch a plane. I'm out of here. Goodbye. Call Howard Monday. It was the shortest dismissal, I'm sure, speech anybody has ever given that didn't just end with the words, you're fired. So I called Howard on Monday, Howard Baldwin being the general managing partner of the Whalers, and he said, Colleen told you you're through. If you don't like it, I won't even send you a check for 2 weeks. Hung up on me. So I said, whoops, all of a sudden I don't have a job. Now what? Somehow or other, through the good fortune of just fate, another gentleman had been an insurance agent for the Aetna company. A fledgling sports producer had invited me on the Monday or the Wednesday after Memorial Day weekend to do a TV documentary type thing that he could bicycle around to cable systems, talking about the Whalers. So I called him and said, Ed, I don't think you want to talk to me about the Whalers on Wednesday because they just fired me. And he said, I have to do something. Come down and talk to me. And so that first week after Memorial Day, we went down. We're sitting around his office. My son, Scott, Ed Egan was the gentleman's name, and I. And we said, what can we do? And what can't we do? Well, we couldn't do anything about the Whalers. And we said, this cable business is kind of intriguing. Now, to put it in perspective, today, you heard Woody say, ESPN is approaching 100 million TV households. Connecticut in 1978 had 10 cable systems. 5 of them were dormant, not a single subscriber. The biggest one was where we had our office. They had 9,500 subscribers. So we said, well, this sounds like a real promising audience. We sat around and talked and said, suppose we do, well, here's an idea. Let's do all the basketball teams in Connecticut. You know how many basketball teams there are in Connecticut? About 6. That wasn't going to fill a program. So daily we talked about this. We can do UConn, and we can do Wesleyan, and we can do, Yale and Southern Connecticut and Fairfield, and the list ran out. So we said, we better think about doing something else. And so we talked to our landlord, and a little aside, I have to tell you about this. Our office, this fellow Ed Egan, at this point, his apartment had been redone, and they took down his closet doors. You know, the old dark wood closet, hollow doors? They took those down, and we went to the local lumber yard and bought those screw-in legs, and those were our desks. We were really going first class in those days. The cable operator, United Cable Television, said, there's this new thing that's coming along. I don't know anything about it. It's called a satellite. Wow, the satellite, what's that mean? We didn't know. I couldn't even spell it. But he said, why don't I get a few of the guys, meaning the other cable operators, to come in and explain this to you, and maybe they know more than I do. So now I'm thinking the clock's ticking. I don't have a job, and now I'm listening to cable operators who probably don't know very much more than I do. They came in and then proved that point. We had a meeting, and Jim Dovey, the gentleman who was hosting it, said, okay, let's tell Bill and Ed and Scott about everything we know about satellites. One guy said, well, I know you can buy everything east of the Mississippi for some amount of money. And another guy said, no, you have to buy New England. Another guy said, no, it doesn't work that way. It's the East Coast. In other words, they didn't have an idea. But the best idea came from one of them, from our host, and he said, why don't you call RCA? And I'm thinking, I don't have a job. I don't have any idea what I'm really talking about. And he said, why don't you call RCA and ask him to come up, talk to you, and tell you what this is, tell you what it's about. Learn something. And I said, sure, why not? So we called him. Much to my surprise, first of all, I didn't think they'd take my call. Who am I? I'm a little guy from the south side of Chicago. Just got through into DePaul, and all these steps along the way have been almost by accident. RCA, the guy answered the phone, first ring. I told him who I was, what I wanted to talk about, and he said, where are you located? I said, Plainville, Connecticut. What are you doing tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock? I'll be up there. Wow, this was a really there must be something going on here that I really don't understand. So he came up. Before he did that, I had to rent that same conference room where we just met in from our host. And it cost us $20 to rent the room for a meeting, but we scraped that part together. We found out, and this is one of the most incredible pieces of not knowing any facts as we went into a meeting, and during that meeting, he explained to us, first, what the satellite is. It's a thing that we send up, we, RCA Americom, send up, and it's got 24 transponders. We killed one of them, he said, on takeoff. We only have 23 left. The military has 12. We have people using 5 of the others for 2 or 3 hours here, 5 hours there. HBO is using one for 5 hours. And the other 6 are empty. They couldn't give them away. Could not give them away, this very valuable asset. We thought, boy, that's really strange. Well, how much does it cost? And so he started to explain to us, 5 hours here, you can do this, you can do 2 hours in the afternoon, and so on. And he said, then we have one that we tried to sell, and this is a very fateful moment in ESPN's history. We tried to sell this. Nobody ever even made an offer. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 5-year commitment for $34,167 a month. I remember the exact figure to this day. Now, we didn't have $34, much less $34,000, but we were interested, and we said, gee, that sounds interesting. So Scott and I talked that night, my son and I, and we said, let's call them tomorrow and take one. They've got 6 of them, they won't miss one. So we called them and we said, we'll take one of those things we were talking about yesterday. We didn't even know the terminology. He said, one of what things? We said, one of those 24-hour things. He said, what are you going to do with it? We said, we don't know. We're going to do some sports, but we'll take it. In the incredible series of coincidences along the way, because RCA could not give them away, literally, we reached an agreement, and according to the FCC, we were in line now. We could have one of those transponders. And that agreement was, from the first day we used it, we had 90 days before we had to pay for it, before we had to pay our first month's rent. So now we thought about that. We said, that's a pretty good deal, because we didn't have any programming anyway, so we weren't going to use it anytime soon. Along came Labor Day 1978, and the Wall Street Journal read an article about the coming communications revolution with satellites. In the left-hand column on the front page of the journal, many of you are familiar with that. Before the day was out, they had 147 applications from companies all across the country, big ones, little ones, so on. We thought, we're dead. That's it. We're gone. Then they told us, the FCC mandates that since we accepted your request prior to that article appearing, one of those 6 is yours. The rest of the people just don't know that yet. The other 5 people that got them were Disney and Time and the big companies. And so we were in business. We had a satellite. We had a satellite. We had no money. How did we pay for it? The straight answer, or the simple answer, I should say, when people say, how did you finance ESPN? I say, it's easy. A $9,000 credit card advance and $146 million from Getty, instant network, just like that. It's not quite the way it went. We got $30,000 from some other relatives, and we had a little bit of money from a venture capital fund. But basically, we started it once we got the transponder, I took a cash advance for $9,000, and away we went. Isn't that how you finance new businesses most of the time? Take your credit card, and away you go. But one thing led to another, and we did do our deal with the NCAA, and there are countless stories about some of the, to me, they were legends. I was meeting Darryl Royal and Eddie Crowder, and just coaches that were the Elliott brothers, Bump and Pete Elliott from Michigan, Crazy Legs Hirsch, names that some of you have no idea about, but the older ones in the audience, you will remember Crazy Legs and all of those folks. And then it was, what are we going to do? Well, we're just going to do sports all the time. Well, we can't really do this, and how, back and forth.